Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to this week's episode of SICW All-Star Wrestling, where we come to you each and every Sunday evening. First of all, I want to wish everybody a happy new year coming up. What a great year 2023 was, and bigger and better things for 2024 at SICW. And as you've been following us over the last several weeks, we've had several guests come in and give us their perspective on what the business has meant to them while we've kind of taken a break. The TV tapings will pick back up in January. It's going to be a lot more talked about that. But tonight, I am so honored to have somebody who has not only been close to the business, but has been close to me. He's one of the best in the business there ever was. He retired, but he still kept in touch with me, and I'll tell you, it's great to have him with us here tonight. Former SICW champion. I'm talking about none other than Mr. Ron Powers. Ron, pleasure having you here in the SICW studios.
Hey, Herb, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure, and I have to say that things have changed.
Yeah, it's we was talking before we went on the air here. Boy, if Larry was still here with us now, he'd be saying, "Boy, what are you guys doing?" You know.
Yeah, the last time I was with you guys, we were doing interviews in front of a curtain. So I mean, yeah, it's quite a change. But yeah, no, it's a real honor to be here, and thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, and for those of you fans who maybe haven't followed SICW for a long time, Ron Powers, like I said, back in the day was a household name. He traveled all over the world, basically. Him and Bruiser Brody, the best of friends, went to Japan together, went to Puerto Rico together, and that's kind of what we want to talk about here tonight. Later on in the hour, we'll give you a little example of some of his photos, and then we'll take you back to a classic like we do each and every week, because that's what SICW is all about. It's about keeping the memories alive, building on that foundation that a lot of these guys, such as Ron Powers and those have built. We continue to build on that. So Ron, real quick, let's tell our viewers, you got started back in the business when?
When I was 18 years old, I was recruited by Pat O'Connor. We worked out together at a gym out in St. Charles, and he asked me to come down to a place called South Broadway because he was still in partnership with the Giant Baba. And at the time, there were certain sumo wrestlers in Japan, world champions or former world champions, that were wanting to evolve from sumo wrestling to pro wrestling. So Pat O'Connor had the great idea of bringing me down there and being basically the dummy. So, but no, he taught me a lot, and there were some guys that went on and made some names for themselves here in the States. And it was a real honor and pleasure to be recruited by Pat, because very few people can say that. And at the same time, he taught me so much at such a young age. I was only 17, maybe just turning 18. I just gotten out of high school that summer, and it was just it was quite a trip. And through going down to South Broadway, I ran into the people that ran Broadway down there, and started a little run down there, and then ran into you, started doing, because you and him had merged, and you guys had gone on to start bringing in Brody. And so at the age of 18 years old, you were tagging me with Frank, and we were going against the likes of, well, geez, who was it back then? Crusher Blackwell, John Nord, Baron Von Rasch,
yeah.
Ox Baker. I took kicks from Ox Baker. Do you know how hard that is to sell? So, yeah, but no, I mean, Ox is great.
Yeah, at the Fairmont Park Racetrack.
That's right, that's right, that's right. And then what was that other place, East Carondelet? No, Sunday Morning Athletic Club.
Yeah.
That was a really good place. And Ron
matches,
Brewer
and Giant Assassin.
Giant Assassin and Big Daddy, you can forget them. And then, we're still great friends today. You have Gary Jackson, and we had Danny Boy, and and
Dennis,
yeah, exactly. Me and Dennis go way back, because he was with Harley Race, and Harley had us doing a little feud back then, and and Dennis was always great to work with, and obviously things have changed with him, but I loved doing it. I loved doing it, And the thing was, I was only out of retirement for a few years, but I still had the edge. And, they always say that wrestling is harder to get out of than it is to get into. And at the time, you know, they only took very few. I mean, it was not just anybody could be a pro wrestler. I mean, you were still, you know, you were still a jabroni, or you were, you know, in the club, and you know, or in somebody's circle, and they took care of you and stuff like that, which is, you know, far way different than what it is now. But yeah, I mean, those guys back then, they taught me something sacred. They taught psychology, being in the rings with the likes of, you know, Bob Orton at a young age, and, you know, Wayne Ferris, who became the Honky Tonk Man, and Dick Murdoch, and, you know, tagging with guys like, you know, Rob Phillips, and, you know, just, you know, Chris Guyson, just guys, you know, just so many memorable times and stuff like that, and just things that made me grow and become a man. Unfortunately, you know, it kind of salted me a little bit too. You know, I mean, I wasn't the best to get along with, and you know, but that you know, you have to have that in order to be hungry and have a fight in you. You know, you can't go around being Mr. Nice Guy and then do some, you know, and do a change and go out there and be a different. You have to be that person, and I was that person, you know, on and off camera, because I felt like that's, you know, that was me, you know, I mean, and if I let my guard down, then, you know, somebody'd get in. So, you know, it's a very defiant sport, you know, you're very territorial, you know, but yet at the same time, you know, you can create a certain brotherhood with the guys in the dressing room, and that's what I miss most. You know, even, you know, I miss the fans, don't get me wrong. I mean, I love going out there, I love getting that pop, you know, that was pretty cool, you know, but, you know, that only lasts, you know, so many minutes, because when you go behind that curtain and, you know, you wait until the next month when you return, you know, you have friends that you talk to, and things that, you know, that you know, you'll never forget, and things, you know, that you know, you grow with them, they grow with you, like me and Gary, or even me and Danny. I mean, just, you know, just the three of us, just being on the road together, and just, you know, traveling up and down, you know, the coast, and going to Chicago,
going to Windy City, yeah.
You know, Windy City, yeah. You know, I mean, just you know, it was a great time, you know, and I wouldn't change anything. You know?
Well, and I think it's worth mentioning, you said the camaraderie that you build with the boys in the locker room. You still had to keep in mind that those boys are, you know, this is a dog-eat-dog world. You know, you got to work your way to the top. So you got to pick and choose who those camaraderies get built with, because there's always somebody over there in the corner lurking and, hey, you know, Ron's coming in this main event. Why should he be a main event? I should be. So you always got to keep that guard up.
And that's what, you know, that's what was the toughest. You know, like when I'd go on the road with WCW, or, you know, I was actually with the WWF back when it was the WWF for a couple weeks, just because it's just, I could only take so much. You know, I mean, I've got to be me. I've got to speak my mind. I'm not going to be a monkey and slip on a banana peel. You know, I mean, you know, there's just certain things that I wouldn't do, and there's certain promotions that just, you know, you had to be a yes man, and I'm pretty sure, as you know, I'm not a yes man. So, no. You know, I'm my own man, and Frank taught me to be that way, and Bob Orton taught me to be that way. So, you know, these are guys in the business that have been chiseled and polished, and, you know, and become legends, you know. So, you know, these were legends that I was fortunate enough to wrestle with, and, you know, I have to say, Herb, I mean, I was fortunate enough to have you put me with them. So, you know, you were the promoter, and you've seen it. You're like, you know, hey, this is Bruiser Brody. You know, who can I get? Who do I like well enough to put him? And you picked me, and I was always honored to do that. And I was honored to tag with Frank. And one of the most memorable days of my life was when he died, and Larry called me, and he said, "You're not going to believe this." And I'm like, and I couldn't believe it. And you know, and things changed.
Yeah.
Things changed
1988,
for me.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Things changed. Things changed for me. Things changed for you. You know, things changed for the independent scene.
Roger, Big Daddy. I mean,
I mean, the thing is, I mean, you know, the thing with Frank is Frank could still go anywhere and still draw. You don't really have that anymore, because you know, you might, but Frank, it doesn't matter what the rest of the card was. I mean, if you had you know, Abdullah the Butcher and Frank and a headliner, it doesn't matter who the rest of them were.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, them people would show up, and you know, I mean, like I said, there's very few people, you know, in this business that can run around and draw, you know, bring 2,000 or 3,000 people just because of their name, you know. So not many people can do that anymore. You know, maybe if you're fresh off the TV and you've been milked for years, as you know, and groomed, and you know, maybe you could still get a draw for a while, but. You know, the depth that Brody had, nobody can replace that, because I mean, you know, he actually learned from the bottom up, and he learned over in Japan, and he learned from, you know, Hiro Matsuda, and just, you know, just guys that that, and Frank was so smart about the business. He never got hooked on drugs. He never, he never wandered off. He never became too big for his head, and he demanded respect. And that's just something, like I said, I learned from him and Bob. I mean, when I go out in that ring, I demanded respect. And I know I lost my edge over the last couple of years when I was back there in SICW, probably for about the last 3 or 4. I really felt like but when you're getting older and you're starting to think about retirement, they say when you start to think about retirement, you've already got 1 foot out the door. And I couldn't like that spark anymore. And I just, if I can't do that and I can't give 100%, then I'm going to hurt myself or I'm going to hurt somebody else, because I do what I do in the ring. And I didn't want to, I think the dagger in my heart was when my dad died. I mean, he used to like going to the shows. He went to all your shows.
Sit right there by the curtain. Yeah.
Yep, right there. And it was just, and everybody knew who he was, and it was just, and when he died, I don't know, I could never really fill that void. He was my best friend.
Well,
it was just tough.
And I remembered that. But and when you're talking about the respect you had for Frank, Bruiser Brody, and the Crusher Blackwells and people like that, there were some of those cards that we put on that you were on there with at the Fox, the Fox Theater, that big card there, the Fairmount Park racetrack, like you said, against Ox Baker and John Nord, the Barbarian, people like that.
The racetracks.
The racetracks, and but the reason why you were in those spots is because those guys took a liking to you. They knew that you were going to go out there and give it 110%. They didn't have to worry about you. They didn't have to lead you around by your hand and say, this is what we're doing. So they had confidence in you. And of course, we had our friend Larry sitting over there telling them in a year, this guy has got it. This guy's the real deal. And so, I'm like you. I owe everything to Larry. Sure. And of course, then Frank, and then of course
he brought everything to us.
Yeah, he brought it.
He had the connections.
He put it all together,
and he learned from Sam, and he knew how to develop that.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, the business was just changing at that time. So.
Yeah, and he always said that. He even wrote about it in the book. He said, guys like you, Rob Phillips, the Giant Assassin. If it had been sooner in your career, boy, you guys would have been on top of that main stage area. But again, you did get to tour the countryside. Is there any of those places that you enjoyed going to with Frank that sticks out in your mind the most?
The thing was like, if you were somewhere with Frank, he was, you got to remember, he was a businessman. It was a little different because, like when he'd go back to Texas and stuff like that, he was conducting things in the back room. He was always pleasant with me. He always gave me great advice. I would have to, I just, the thing about Frank was I like just being in the SICW with him, just because these people, I never felt like, I always felt like when I went into other dressing rooms, you got to remember, that they got a friend that wants your spot, they got a brother that wants your spot, and I always kind of felt like everything was a work with all these guys. And I felt, I felt uncomfortable. Like I said, I felt uncomfortable like that in the WCW. I just kind of felt like everybody was just looking at me, and you had to keep your head on a swivel, and it was just, it wasn't fun. I want to have fun in this business, and when you no longer have fun, then what's the point in doing it? Frank, that's one thing he did. He just taught me to have fun, and like I said, demand respect. But as far as the territories, I like. I'll tell you the truth. I just like working here in the States with him. That was the best, because he was kind of a different animal overseas. He had to be. It's like I said, it's a character in you that you develop, and you have to be like that off camera, because if you show a certain side, then people run with it, and you can't ever let that down. So I kind of empathize and sympathize with him when he would go overseas, for sure.
Well, and as you heard Ron say, back in 1988, when that terrible time happened to Frank when he got murdered, that day will always stick in our mind, because he was actually with us the weekend before at a establishment that I'd owned in Cahokia, Illinois, and terrible, terrible times. And I know his widow, Barbara Goodish, watches us the show every week. And so, Barbara, I know what we're talking about here. we've talked about it many, many times. It brings back memories, but they're the good memories of us being able to keep his legacy alive. And I know, sitting here with Ron, I know when you're watching this, because Ron is always one of your favorites. Barbara always asks, how's Ron doing, you know? Even though you stood her up last May at the Fan Fest when we got the wires crossed at the Fan Fest.
Oh, yeah.
She sat there at the table and she said, "Hey, there's Ron's pictures. Where's he at?" And I said, "Well, something must have come up." But
yeah, we had a miscommunication.
Yeah, but no, she always asks about Ron. We're going to take a real quick break and hear from one of our sponsors. You've been hearing from Ron Powers about the start of his career and about what Frank Bruiser Brody meant to his career. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more. We'll be right back.
Wrestling fans, you looking for the best in daily lunch specials and great menu food items? Look no further than Layla's Roadhouse, 440 Falling Springs Road in Cahokia Heights, Illinois. That's right, a family sit-down dining and always great specials. Also has the best pizza in the area. Wrestling fans, one of SICW's newest sponsors for FanFest 2 is KC Insurance. For all your insurance needs, look to KC Insurance.
There you have it, another great sponsor. We can't do it without them, helping us each and every week bring you the finest in professional wrestling, and that's right here at SICW. As you hear us say many, many times, we're here building on the foundation and the legacy that all the greats, the names that you just heard Ron talking about, the foundation that they build is what SICW continues to do, old school wrestling. Ron, you know, we talked about Frank. Let's talk a little about Larry Matisek. What Larry Matisek meant to Ron Powers.
Well, I mean, Larry has always been kind of like he's the one. He gave me a lot of spots to go to, like working down at for Buck Rowley down in New Orleans. He helped develop my character, and he gave me a lot of decent advice as far as like how to deal with promoters, because he knew how headstrong I was. And, you know, he kind of like, you know, talked me off the ledge in some aspects. I always had a lot of respect. I mean, he just had a great plethora of knowledge for this sport, and you could ask him anything, and he seemed to know almost everybody, and it was just it was an honor, because he was like the wrestling encyclopedia. And the thing is, he didn't just read about it, he experienced it, and it was always an honor to even be in the room with him.
Well, and I know there was many times that we'd have meetings together, and you know, you'd always be a part of those, the booking meetings, and he always appreciated your input and your knowledge of the business, and that's because he knew that he had helped add a little bit to your knowledge of the business. So he'd always say, "Hey, find out when Ron's available and see when he can make it over." And later on, when Larry was ill and when his health started failing, we would actually go to the assisted living center, and I remember we'd sit out there in the lobby and have a little meeting, and he always looked at, or we'd go to Steak and Shake, his favorite place to go to, and so but he always said, we got to have Ron there because he's going to add that 2 cents, and before you know it, it's going to end up being a dime or a quarter when Ron gets through putting everything in. And sure enough, you know, we all had the same goal, that we wanted to give the fans the best we could, and when you had the mind of Larry Matisek, you had the ability of Ron Powers to put that all together. I think that's why SICW has been around as long as it has been.
Oh yeah, I mean, Herb, I've been with you since I was 18 years old. I mean, it's just, and I'm 57 now. So,
Man, it's a long time.
Yeah, it was a long time, and you know, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Well, and like I said, and I've told this story many times. When you retired, got out of it for a while, and I mean, you talk about being depressed. I mean, I told the wife, man, Ron's retiring. You know, the business is going to halt, you know. And then that Saturday morning, I got that call from you, and you said, hey, I got the itch, you know. I called Larry right away and said, you'll never guess who just called me, Ron, and he's got an itch again. So that was another happy day for us at SICW, because, you know, you've always been a person in the locker room that can work with the younger people. You can pick out the good guys and who the trouble people are, which we try to have a drama-free locker room. And but guys like Tokyo Monster, he just talked about you the other day. I was on the phone with him, and I told him I was going to be having you on for a guest. He said, man, let me know so I can watch it. You know, he always respected you. That's the Tokyo Monster, who will be joining us in May.
Cahagas.
Cahagas, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, him and Flash.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they were two tough guys you'd bring in for me, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, and Flash is still out there. Like I said, he's another one that takes no prisoner, and he's the real deal, and that's what we do. And they come in and they teach the younger guys, and of course, we're so fortunate to have a Bob Morton in the locker room running the Ace Wrestling Academy, teaching the younger generations the right way, and that's maybe someday I get you to come over and sit in there with Bob on a training session with the Big Texan and them guys, and let some of these young guys out there that, and I got to say, they're all great. The ones that Bob has graduated from there, doing fine. He's got quite a few in there now. But it'd be good to come over and have somebody like you to get in there and show them what it was like back in the day. But so we talk about Larry. We all know Larry left us way too soon, and you came over the day that that we got the word that he wasn't going to be with us long. I still keep in touch with his lovely wife Pat. She asks about you all the time, and so back then the business was what it was, and now you get to see a little bit of it. Is it fair to say that it's just done 180 degrees from what it used to be?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that have changed. I mean, psychology has changed, first of all. I mean, it's just they think differently now. I think most of the guys you see on TV, they seem to be cookie cutters of each other. I feel like they go to the same training schools, therefore they take the same bumps, they throw the same punches, they do the same spots. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's just, they just seem like they're just, jumping around on a trampoline out there. It's just not, it's not the same. It's not psychology. I mean, just sometimes less is more, and they just don't get it. But then again, I mean, they're on Fox. So I mean,
how much do you have to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like you just let the company do it for you, and all you are is just the mold. Hey, this is what we do, and the only time you can do anything for yourself is in the social media by trying to brand yourself and market yourself the best you can. But when you're on the TV for Vince, he's going to turn you into whatever he wants you to turn into, or whatever the company wants you to be. So it's for the young kids, make it while you can. Just try to stay healthy and don't kill yourself, because basically that's kind of what people want to see you do now. I mean, when you're doing moonsaults off the top of a cage onto a table, or two tables stacked on top of each other, I mean, there's something bad's about to happen. And
for the 5-second pop.
Sure, and the thing about it is, I mean, then when are you going to come back with the next week? Because you always got to top what you did the week before. I mean, so, I mean, I'm sorry, but once I seen The Undertaker die and resurrect on an Easter pay-per-view, I was like, if people don't understand this at this point, then, but you know what? Hey, look at what he grew. I mean, he monopolizes the business, and, you run with it. And there's very few places like this. That is why I like the SICW, is because this is, I don't like using the term grassroots because it sounds kind of hillbilly-ish, but in the same aspect, I mean, there's no other term really to use, because this is just, this is the old school style. And, I know there's, the talent in this promotion, I think, exceeds talent in any other promotion that I've seen. And like I said, with Bob running the school, I think you're getting a lot of students that have a lot of potential out of here. I'm glad I'm not in the business anymore, but in the same aspect, I don't know, I just, 15, 20 years ago, I mean, I would have, I still would have ran through your locker room.
Man.
I still remember your notes on the shows. Ron, no tables or chairs, please.
Please, no holes in the walls. No, and those are all memories, and believe me, those are all tapes that we have that, the library is great, and we've kept each and every one of them, because someday somebody will do something with them. I always joke, I tell people that when I leave this great world and this earth that we are visiting on, my wife will have the biggest bonfire ever, and all that stuff will go up in smoke. And of course, the real diehard fans are saying, oh no, tell her to call me, I'll come and get all those tapes and all that memorabilia. But
when I was getting ready for the show today, my wife looks at me, she holds my wrist, she goes, I hate the wrestling, Ron. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, well, you're normal, and now you're wrestling, or you're going down to this thing for wrestling. She goes, you're acting like a wrestler. I go, like, she goes, you're not a wrestler. I go, I know, I'm not.
Yeah.
This is just an interview.
The time for one. I mean, I tell you this all the time when we talk. I mean, you have meant so much to SICW over the years, and I could never repay you for everything that you've done to help get us where we are. You know, come February, it's going to be my 51st year of promoting.
That's crazy.
Long time, but you know, you've been a big part of that, as well as so many of the other guys. The big Texan, you know, Bobby D, Gary Jackson, Sean Vincent. Like you said, the depth of our locker room is great. Telecon, you know, you've had battles with him time and time up and down the seaboard. You know,
you sit there and you bring up that name Cahages again. For some reason, the hair on my arms just but. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to be able to sit here and talk about that's what we're doing. We're going to talk a little bit more. Before we do that, we got another sponsor we want to hear from. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about Ron's career in the business, about SICW, about the SICW Fan Fest 2 coming up next year in 2024. We'll be right back.
It's back, May 17th and 18th, SICW Fan Fest 2. Tickets available at SICW.org. Meet the stars of professional wrestling, up close and personal. Wendy Richter, Tito Santana, Steve Kern, the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, Haku, Coco Beware, Cowboy Bob Orton Jr., Leilani Kai, Tim Storm, Sal Renaro, Brian Blair, Tommy Rich, Abdullah the Butcher, the Boogie Woogie Man, Manny Fernandez, Godfather, Rock and Roll Express, Jim Brunzell, Teddy Long, and Mac Davis, Bill After, and many more. Don't miss the SICW Fan Fest and St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame. It all starts with the Bill After one-man show on Friday and the Fan Fest and Hall of Fame on Saturday. Be there!
Wrestling fans, for all your massage needs, visit the Restorative Massage Center located inside the Sheer Techniques Salon in Troy, Illinois. Masseuse Shauna has been a licensed massage therapist for over 10 years, and she customizes each massage to meet the needs of her clients, performing Swedish deep tissue and trigger point therapy. For all your massage needs, contact Shauna with the Restorative Massage Center.
Well, there you have it, another great sponsor. As I said, we can't do it without them. We appreciate each and every one of them. And if there's somebody out there that wants to become a sponsor and be a part of what SICW is doing, just reach out to us. I'm the easiest guy to find on social media. I don't hide from anybody. I'm kind of like Ron Powers. You can find me all around. But we'd appreciate anybody who'd like to get on with your organization. Ron, we talk about the shows that we done at the Fox Theater when we had Crusher Blackwell, we had Bruiser Brody, we had Kamalo the Ugandan Giant.
Fantastic.
The Fantastics was on there, the Midgets were on there, you know, Cowboy Bob, Cowboy Lang and Little Tokyo.
Are we still allowed to call them midgets?
Well, I do. I mean, it's old school. It's old school. And if I call Little Kato,
oh, they were great.
Yeah,
they were great.
Yeah,
Little
they
Tokyo,
were. Yeah.
Bobby D, the Dragon Kid.
The Karate Kid,
Karate Kid.
Yeah, that's Kato. He's gonna join us in May.
Very memorable times with those guys.
And of course, Roger, you know, Littlebrook, the guy who ran them, great individual, and miss him dearly. But my point is, you know, we had all those great shows. We traveled all over Missouri and Illinois. You know, one show after another, end up down in Albion, Illinois, or El Dorado, Illinois, with Dick Murdoch and Greg Valentine. And these are all guys that you have been fighting all over the country with.
Yes.
I mean, tell our viewers what it was like traveling out there with Dirty Dick Murdoch or Greg Valentine or Tony Atlas, people like that.
Well, the one that sticks out in my mind was the promotion that Larry had put me with down in New Orleans with Buck, because the first guy they put me in the ring with was Paul Orndorff. The second guy they put me in the ring with was Junkyard Dog. The third guy they put me in the ring with was Robert Gibson from the Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah.
And it was just like, you know, it was a learning experience to go from a South Broadway to, you know, you got to remember when we did these shows, you know, back when we bring these guys in, you know, we bring them back in for a weekend and stuff like that. So it was kind of like you learned what you could for a weekend, but you know, when you're on the road with these guys and you're doing it night after night after, it's a whole different experience.
Right.
You know, it's a whole different experience to do this 5 and 6 nights, 7 nights a week, sometimes twice on the weekend days. You know, it's just crazy. You know, and you have to be in shape, and you know, not just gym shape. You have to be in hitting shape. You have to be able to take a shoulder tackle, drop down, get up. You know, I mean, just
right.
it's just. And keep going. You got to keep track of the camera. You got to keep track of the ref. You got to keep track of your partner. You got to keep track of your opponent. You got, if you're in a tag match, you got to keep track of that. If you're in a 6-man tag, you got to keep track of 5 other guys. So it's, you know, I mean, it's a lot.
It's a mental strain.
It's a mental strain. You know, I mean, it's God. I'm so glad I'm not in it anymore.
Yeah. So. You've lived all of that. And,
oh yeah.
But it's good to sit and talk about it, because I can tell in your voice it just kind of like takes you into flashbacks. You know.
Oh my gosh, just talking to you, Herb. I mean, like I said, there's times, there's names. You know, the hair on my arm stand up. You know, I mean, it's just, you know, I mean, it's just, it's been 10 years. You know, and I'm pretty much content where I'm at. You know, I mean, like I said, I look at the talent you've got. I'm you know, I wish them all the best. You know, I mean, if anybody's going to be able to show them something, it's the guys that you have in that school. It sounds like you have a really good thing going down there. I mean, Gary Jackson is still kicking it.
Our champion, the Big Texan, you know.
Oh my gosh, you know. Yeah,
I remember that match.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember the first night I met him was the Brody thing, wasn't it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because he said something to Barbara or something, and I got in the middle of it.
Yeah.
You know, what an experience, what a ride.
Yeah, it's been great, and like I said, that's what it is. Wrestling at the Chase, as we say all the time, you know, started on television in 1959, and we can never duplicate it. Nobody's trying to say that, but we are darn sure going to try to keep it alive as long as we can, and we're going to do that right now. I want to show you a little video, not a video, but a picture of a good friend of mine who sent me these statues. So let's take a look at that, and we'll be right back. And there you have it, those 3 little figures right there. And somebody may say, well, what's so important about them? Well, if you look at them close enough, those were made by a dear friend of mine. Actually, when we were out in Vegas, he found somebody to make them, and it took him until the holidays here to get them done. But if you look on my profile picture, that's a figure of Sam Muchnick, Larry Matisek, and myself. And if you see the little nameplates on them, it's got the Wrestling at the Chase, it's got the NWA logo, and then it's got the SICW logo on them. And that's kind of what, if you look back at the book that Ed Wheatley did on Wrestling at the Chase, a coffee table book, The Three-Legged Stool, the story he tells about that, how this has been passed down from Larry to Sam to me. So, you know, there's some people out there that questions that, you know, what makes Herb Simmons the authority on St. Louis wrestling. Never, never will you hear me say I'm the authority of St. Louis wrestling. I will tell you, if you want to know something about St. Louis wrestling, I've got the proof to back up what I show you. And so I'll leave that at that. So for any of you who want to question about it, if I don't know it, I can call people to find out about it. So Ron, Wrestling at the Chase, we all watched it growing up. Those 3 little figures there, me, Sam, and Larry, kind of just solidifies what we're trying to keep alive here. And I think we showed that this last May at the Aviator Hotel and Ballroom in South St. Louis, where we had 50 legends and special guests come in for the first ever Fan Fest to take place in St. Louis that SICW had done. And now they've talked us into doing one in May of 2024. And some of the people coming in there already, Stan Hansen, friend of yours. Bob Orton's going to be inducted into the St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame. We've got the Rock and Roll Express, Robert Gibson and Ricky Morton. It's going to be there. We got, who else? Abdullah the Butcher's coming in. Sergeant Slaughter. And I think we're up to about 30-some people right now. And that doesn't get done easily without having the connections to do that. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, if anybody's got any questions about your notoriety and your past and everything you've accomplished in this sport, just call up any guy that's still alive that's been in the main events back in the day, and they all know who Herb is. They all respect Herb, and Herb is one of a kind. I will say that. I'm not just saying that because you're here, but I'll tell you what. You're in a lot of these guys' hearts. I mean, when I go to the Cauliflower Alley reunion, everybody talks highly of SICW. They respect what you do. You're one of the few promotions that are still in the ring today, competing and putting high levels of talent in the ring, creating a studio like this. I mean, my gosh, Herb, I think my first belt was made at Home Depot. And I look at what you've evolved into now with the championship belts and the money that's gone into it, and the time and the effort of everybody around you. And my hat's off to you guys. You've really evolved. You've come a long way, and it makes me proud that I was once a part of this promotion.
Well, and like I said, I can't thank you enough. But speaking of the promotion, we took off the month of December because the boys had been working so hard for the last 6 months. Every weekend they didn't have a weekend off, so we gave them off in December. But we're going to start over on January the 13th, and we've got a couple of guys in a steel cage match that you are very familiar with. I'm talking about Attila Khan, who you have had battles after battles with, going against your good friend, the Night Train Gary Jackson, in a steel cage match. And it's been such a back and forth situation with these two. I brought in a special guest referee, another good friend of yours, Danny Boy.
Danny?
Danny Boy, yeah. I know it's a shock to you because, Danny kind of hung the boots up too, but I put him on the spot a couple of months ago. He showed up to one of the shows. 2 referees got hurt in the same night, which, normally I try to have at least 3 referees. That night I was short. I needed a special referee for the main event, and so I was able to, with the help of the crowd, because I got the greatest crowd around, SICW fans, Danny Boy stepped in that night, and I saw what he's still able to get in there and do. I mean, that night he kept the law and order. Now you got Attila Khan and Gary Jackson going at it, and so I can't think of anybody else right then and there that I wanted to be the special guest referee. And what's your thoughts on a match like that?
Oh,
You probably think Danny's crazy.
Yeah, well, I don't understand what, yeah, I mean, hopefully he could put his fishing pole down long enough to come in and referee, but, I don't know if I'd want to jump in and referee that match right off the bat. Yeah, no, this is kind of a shock to me. Because me and him kind of made a vow, a pact, you might say, a few years back, like, hey, man, we ain't touching this stuff again. So,
yeah, it's okay.
we ain't touching this again. And we didn't mind. I thought he was just coming in to do some color for you. I didn't realize he was going to be refereeing at this point. I'm going to have to give him a call, but, hey, he's a big boy if that's what he wants to do. But, hopefully he doesn't bite off more than he can chew. And, he's been out of the ring longer than I have. But, yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like I need to make a phone call.
Well, yeah, but do me a favor. Don't talk him out of it because he's already advertised to be there. So that's January the 13th at Belclair Fairgrounds. But, and it was a shock to me. I mean, we've stayed in touch over the years. But when he showed up, it was like, man, oh, man, I remember him when he first walked into the South Broadway Athletic Club. If he weighed 110 pounds, he was lucky. In fact, I'll never forget when Tony Costa said, hey, that's going to be one of our new workers. And I looked at him, and I thought he was talking about Danny's dad. And come to find out it was Danny. And of course, now look at him. He's, traveled all over the roads with you and Gary and Brody and people like that. So, but I knew that you hadn't probably heard about that yet, so that was kind of a surprise. But
yeah, that's a shocker. Yeah. I'll have to give him a call.
Yeah, give him a call and say, hey, if I'm not doing anything, I may stop by up there that night because you may need somebody to hook your worm for you or something.
Yeah, that kind of scares me because I know Danny. I know his temper. I mean, I hope he don't get in a spot. I just, I don't need to talk to him. I'm not gonna talk him off the car, but I'm gonna have to tell him to keep his cool.
Yeah, because he don't
need to be doing this anymore. I mean, he's kind of in the same boat I am. I mean, I have grandkids now. And he's moved on. I mean, just, like I said, he's been out of it longer than I have.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. I kind of surprised Ron with that information there, but. We also want to talk about the, like I said, the Fan Fest 2 coming up on Friday, May the 17th, a Friday night. That's a VIP night. Mr. Bill Apter will be there doing his one-man show, and if you've never seen that, you are in for a treat. There's still some tickets available for that Friday night. But then on Saturday, May the 18th, 10 o'clock in the morning, Fan Fest opens up, and it runs all day long. That early evening, we'll have the St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame induction. We've already announced Cowboy Bob Orton Jr. is being inducted, Lalani Kai, Judy Martin, Wendy Richter, and then Gary Jackson is receiving the Sam Muchnick Award this year for all of his contribution to his career. And then, of course, it's all rounded off that night by the Bruiser Brody Battle Royal that takes place right there at the Aviator Hotel and Ballroom at 6921 South Lindbergh Boulevard, South St. Louis. Easy to find. It's a great time. It was a great event this last May. They say it's going to be bigger and better. And, of course, like Ron said earlier, if it's worth doing bigger and better. And so that's what we're doing. Every day I'm getting calls from legends asking to be a part of it. And, if we can get over 50, that's fine. If we get right at 50, fine. If we get less than 50, we will still have a great time for SICW Fan Fest 2. Ron, I can't thank you enough for coming in here tonight.
It's been a pleasure.
To talk to our fans.
Brought back a lot of memories.
Brought back memories, and like I said, I appreciate all the kind words about SICW because I know they come from your heart. And I say it all the time, I've got a great locker room. You've heard Ron Powers talk about it. I've got great wrestling fans. Each and every one of you know who you are. We're getting more and more every month at the Belle Claire Fairgrounds, where Ron ran back there years ago, and to think we're back there now doing it. So we can't thank the Fairgrounds people enough for letting us to use their venue there to keep the tradition of professional wrestling alive, just like it was at Wrestling at the Chase. So, right now what I want to do, since we talked about Wrestling at the Chase, we're going to take a little clip, take you back in time for another little match from Wrestling at the Chase.
Minute time limit. Introducing from Albuquerque, New Mexico, weighing 233 pounds, Gil Guerrera. And from Seattle, Washington, weighing 242 pounds, Greg Valentine. Referee, Lee Wan.
There was a surprising amount of applause for Greg Valentine as Mickey Garagiola introduced him for his match against Gil Guerrero. Of course, that's been the good things about the fine people here in the greater St. Louis area. They appreciate a wrestler's skills. And maybe sometimes they're mad at him or they don't like some of his tactics. But basically, they know to respect a man. And Greg Valentine right there is somebody who definitely has to be respected. Nothing to be ashamed of at all when you're friends and part of a spectator crowd, an audience at a St. Louis sporting event. Fine people, a lot of friends there. Kind of people you miss when you're not with them, that's for sure. Double wrist lock by Valentine. He carries Guerrero over. Guerrero getting to his feet. Valentine switches into that double wrist lock again because he has more options from that position. And one option is to push Guerrero to the ropes. Ed Warren trying to get a clean break and gets one from Greg Valentine. Greg's dad, Johnny, had his moments both ways with the crowds here in St. Louis, that's for sure. There were a lot of times when they were mad at him, they booed him. There were just as many times they stood up and cheered him. When he was battling John Paul Henning or Edouard Carpentier or Cowboy Bob Ellis or Pat O'Connor, they were booing Johnny Valentine. But a lot of other times when Valentine was in there with the likes of the late Buddy Austin, Buddy Rogers, the Bruiser, Von Erich. You heard a lot of cheers then, too. Valentine drives the elbow into the shoulder. Mickey Garagiola reminding me of something we didn't point out. Of course, a lot of people are much aware that our good friend Wild Bill Longson passed away in December, and the former matchmaker of the St. Louis Wrestling Club, a longtime associate of former promoter Sam Muchnick, Bobby Bruns, also passed away about a month ago. Of course, Bobby was in St. Louis in the 1950s and 1960s, left to take a job with the promotion in Buffalo, New York. Very highly respected, an excellent wrestler, good friend. Shame when you lose Longson and Bruns over the period of a month or two, losing some good people. Bobby Bruns and that Boston Bulldog, always had a Boston Bulldog with him.
know about that Boston Bull between Bobby Bruns and Johnny Valentine. When they sat down to eat, they ate garlic smothered with spaghetti. I mean, they had more garlic on plates than any two wrestlers I know.
Could you stand to be near them?
Oh, man, you could smell them from one end of the town to the other.
Greg Valentine, I don't know if he puts garlic on his spaghetti. Mickey will find out, though.
I'm going to have to ask him.
Greg Valentine drops Guerrero with that Greco-Roman back body drop. Maneuver his dad used very well. Greg hooking the head between his legs. And Greg Valentine going for the pile driver on Gil Guerrero, and he goes forward with it. The standing pile driver rather than going backward. I think he realized that Guerrero was maybe trying to brace himself, so he went the other direction with it. Good thinking by Greg Valentine. Valentine again locks the arm. Guerrero throws him down. Valentine manhandling Guerrero at this point. Look at him stand over and pull back on that arm. Perfect positioning. Perfect positioning by Greg Valentine to make that arm lock very effective. A lot of pressure in the shoulder. You can see the arm twisted a little bit, the muscle straining across the elbow. Guerrero's arm taking it right now from Greg Valentine. Guerrero trying to scoot out underneath. Mistake, left the stomach open for Valentine's knee. Valentine pitches Guerrero right through the ropes, the apron and down to the floor and into the front row. Guerrero trying to regain his bearings outside the ring. Valentine asks no quarter and he gives none. Get him back, yells Guerrero. Valentine not in the mood to wait. Valentine grabs Guerrero, catches him with a blast to the side. Oh, did Valentine pop Guerrero there? Guerrero trying to battle back. Valentine getting the best of the slugfest. Greg Valentine pounding on Guerrero. Valentine with a flying mare on Guerrero. Valentine pulls back on that leg and the elbow slammed into the hamstring muscle by Greg Valentine. Valentine again, this time with a body drop into the knee of Guerrero. And then a standing leg split briefly, spinning toe hold, and Guerrero scissors, the ankle of Guerrero scissored as Valentine drops back.
5 minutes have passed, 15 minutes left.
Greg Valentine now methodically punishing the legs of Guerrero. A standing leg split now by Greg Valentine on Gil Guerrero. And again, you can see that perfect balance that Valentine has so he can push into the leg, stretch out that hamstring some more. Valentine brings the knee into the other leg. Now Valentine steps over. He can very easily turn this into a half crab on Guerrero. Guerrero tells the referee no, he won't give up. Guerrero, a very awkward and painful position. Valentine sees the back right there for him. Shifts into a double toe hold. Then makes sure his knee stays in the small of Guerrero's back and puts punishment again, pressure on both legs. Valentine reaching inside that double toe hold, using his shoulder as a pressure point. And Guerrero painfully crawls underneath the ropes. Discretion before valor in this case. It hurts, and he got out of the way. Valentine, those stomps on the back. Greg Valentine using that second rope for extra leverage to go to the air and punish the back of Gil Guerrero. Valentine took those punches of Guerrero, battled back himself. That chop was on the money. Guerrero tosses Valentine to the ropes. Oh, Valentine comes off with that brain buster right to the head of Guerrero. Guerrero was setting him up for the backdrop. Valentine instead with the brain buster and then bangs the elbow into the chest, knocking the wind out of Guerrero. Valentine grabs the leg, both legs up, spins the toe hold, locks it around, cinches it up, and there's that figure four leg lock. A figure four leg lock by Greg Valentine on Gil Guerrero. And Guerrero with no choice but to submit. Greg Valentine runs roughshod over Gil Guerrero. And it's about 50-50 cheers and boos for Greg Valentine. He just went in there and hard-nosed, tough customer that he is, polished down, methodically wore down Gil Guerrero. We're going to get another look at Valentine cinching up that figure 4. One brain buster already landed. There's that elbow driven in again. Guerrero already stunned. Valentine following it up. Grabs the legs, makes sure the man's in the middle of the ring. Good ring sense by Greg Valentine. Locks it up, makes sure he has it cinched good so he can really rip at that cartilage in the knee. And the figure 4 leg lock gives Greg Valentine the win. Here's Mickey Garagiola.
In 7 minutes and 9 seconds, with the figure 4, the winner, Greg Valentine.
There you have it. You know, Wrestling at the Chase, name, household name forever and ever and ever. It always will be. I was glad to bring you that little clip tonight. We try to do that each and every week. I want to just, again, thank everybody, wish everybody a happy and a prosperous 2024. And if you're not on the train of the SICW, as Gary Jackson said, the train's leaving the station here at 2024, and it's going to be a great trip throughout the year. So join us right back here next Sunday night at 8 p.m. on YouTube or your social media channel, and we'll have a lot more information coming your way. Everybody have a good night.
Danny boy, I'm going to be calling you.